evident that if we regard today as a kind of future, from, say, 1985, that in the last year, the last couple years, museums around the country have realized that they've left the Black experience completely out of abstraction, let's say, and that there's been this chase to kind of catch the past, right? So if one way of thinking about the future is the future not simply, instead of this, if it were this, then it would allow museums to kind of, with new progressive attitudes, more buoyancy, more interest in the broader us, the broader we, could it not be that museums are simply doing what they've been doing, except capturing in a wider and wider net all the things that were not included in those histories the 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 years prior? Could part of the future simply be a kind of fishing for the past, and a correction, an apology, and a reckoning with the fact that there were moments in the past that were important and we intentionally or unintentionally left them out? And that reckoning and the apology that says, oh my gosh, we have not been interested in First Nations ideas enough, we have not been interested in women's issues enough, we've not cared, and it's at that point where the devil rears its head and then is willing to say, oh my gosh, there's so much more good stuff back there, let's bring it forward. And that already feels like a kind of futuring, the recapturing as a kind of future.
Yeah, that's a very powerful statement indeed.
Can I add to
Yes,
that,
Louise,
Harriet?
jump in there, please.
Theaster, in terms of that connection of past to future, and we talk a lot, I think, broadly, academically about Afrofuturism, but it's hard not to go back to a project like the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which was 100 years in the making. And we think of the arc of the moral universe. It's long, but it bends towards justice. And I think there was that incredible forward thinking that is deeply rooted in Afro-diasporic sensibility to recognize the importance not only of a history, but of a people, and the importance of a place to hold that history. The incredible commitment of not only the movement for Black studies in the 60s, for example, but also the movement for Black museums, which often were these mobile units that would go out into communities until they found their place. So I think that thinking, that futuristic thinking, that recognition and understanding has always been in play. And then is crowned in the most remarkable way by the National Museum of African American History and Culture that sits on the National Mall